Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I'm Phil Bakke, and I'm joined tonight by Mikka Burrell. Mikka, how's it going?
Hey, it's going. Happy April.
Yep.
Can you believe it?
Mm-hmm. Should we just address the elephant in the room and say it's April Fool's Day? You can't don't expect any fools from us. But the club did ultimate cringe April Fool's Day post
With firing Ozzy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm I don't know. Corporations are being too safe right now because the economy is in the shitter and nobody wants to get canceled. So
right.
The April Fools were not giving at all this year.
And I got rickrolled today.
No,
by an April Fool's post. So
oh my God,
I'm in the mud.
That's infuriating. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. The Aussie post, it didn't hit, it also didn't come across as maybe much of a joke, given that it was this time last year that we were contemplating firing a head coach. So, and then did pull the trigger. So it is what it is. But yeah, we are back today to talk about Locomotive getting a win over the weekend, although maybe a little bit harder fought than it could have been. And then we'll talk US Open Cup preview. We've got the midweek game tomorrow. If you're listening, it is Tuesday as we're talking. The first tomorrow, we've got US Open Cup against Ventura County FC. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then the main event, which is next Saturday, Logan Ketterer's homecoming to El Paso with Lexington SC, along with Lucas Stoffer, who will both make their returns to the SWUP in green and green. So yeah, we've got a full agenda, but first things first, if you like the podcast and you enjoy listening and like Locomotive, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcast player. We're probably on it. And rate, review, whatever it is, so we can get in front of more locos. But I guess, Mikka, without further ado, 3 points in Hartford. And I guess, like I said, a little bit harder work than maybe on paper, or I guess as we watch the game play out on the field, it just felt like Hartford weren't really offering much, but unfortunately, neither were we for large portions of the game. The good news being that Wahab Akwe spares our blushes and tucks away a nice goal from a corner, but Locomotive maybe a little bit toothless for large portions of this one.
I think that's fair to say, toothless, and I think the commentators said as much throughout the game of they're kind of just canceling each other out. And I think that's true. Obviously, it's a long ways away from home. That's a pretty significant road trip all the way out to Hartford. And so I suppose the boys can be forgiven for being a little bit sluggish. Also going ahead 2 hours in time to Eastern time. And it was a blustery day, a cold day, in the 40s, low 40s, something like that. So not the most ideal conditions, right, for soccer, but at the end of the day, you got to get the job done, and we did do first win of the season, and I'm glad that we were able to get all 3 points against a team that I do think is inferior to us. But yeah, you're spot on that I think it was harder work than perhaps it should have been, or that we were expecting it to be. So yeah, it's a hard one to analyze because I don't know that there was a whole lot of quality on display at all, really.
Yeah.
I think the scoreline flatters to deceive both teams in terms of the spectacle that this was, or lack thereof. Of any spectacle. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think you are completely fair in pointing out why this is a tough trip, sort of regardless of the opposition, particularly given that they're headed into a 3-match week. So there's squad planning that has to go on in that respect as well. Mentioning sort of this scoreline flattering to deceive, when I think about the goals, I'm like, if it hadn't been for tap-ins, like there basically wouldn't have been a goal in this game, because the ball sort of falls to Beto Avila in a very advantageous position, although, you know, Beto showing his finishing touch, and he does seem an instinctive goal scorer, which I do appreciate. But similarly, Hartford's goal from basically sort of a mix-up and falls to a Hartford player like in a good position, and then, you know, a flick on at the near post for Aqua's goal. But we'll cover all the big events. I guess talking about the team for Locomotive, not a ton of shocks, but it was the first time that we got to see Eric Calvillo next to Frank DeRoma in midfield. And we saw another start for Andy Cabrera out on that right-hand side, as he was preferred to Tumi Moshibane, as Avila got played up front. But any initial thought? I mean, aside from that, it wasn't tons of shocks, although I guess maybe Brian Romero playing himself fully into the starting reckoning. It does seem off the back of that U.S. Open Cup performance and what I thought was a solid performance in New Mexico. He stayed in the decision. But any thoughts on the overall like team selection here?
This was the first team selection that I really didn't have many objections to at all. You're right to point out, of first and foremost, the Eric Calvillo, Frank DeRoma midfield partnership, because it seems, or at least we've been projecting, that might be the pair, the pivots that can, you know, do the most damage. Robert Coronado's not necessarily got off to the best start this season, and so he rides the bench for this one. Then you mentioned Brian Romero coming off, you know, 2 goals in the U.S. Open Cup, and then a solid performance despite the result in New Mexico, so keeps his place. Tony Alfaro doesn't even make the bench, so that was kind of an interesting one. I know last season he struggled a bit with injury, and you know, one wonders if anything like that is cropping up again, or if it just was like, you know, this is going to be the team, so might as well not have certain folks travel. I don't know if he traveled or not, but to not make the bench was really interesting, since he's been such a mainstay for Wilmer, at least in the early going.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't a fitness thing, only because I don't think we technically had a center back on the bench.
Which you wouldn't do to yourself, like, willfully, right? So that's a good point. And then Tumi Moshibane seems like he's not preferred right now over Andy Cabrera, although I do think, despite what we saw in New Mexico, I think Andy Cabrera bounced back much better in this one. Yeah. For what that's worth. So yeah, not too many objections with the starting lineup, and I thought for the most part it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think the Coronado shot is an interesting one, along with Andy Cabrera. I think it is worth saying, just because we did go in. I went in a little bit on Andy Cabrera last time out, and I did want to say that he definitely was improved in this match. I still think that there's something to Toomey. Like, the last time we looked like significantly good offensively was against Phoenix, and Toomey started that one. So I maybe need to see a little bit more before I'm sold on this, just because we've had a couple of lesser offensive performances with Andy in there, but that's just one variable of many in how a team is building up and playing in an attacking sense. So it's not all on his shoulders, and he definitely was better in this game. And then the interesting thing about Coronado, I think in particular, is the fact that, I mean, you mentioned that he goes as an unused substitute in this one. And it was actually Tomasi who's preferred like as the first midfielder off the bench, ahead of Coronado. Could be a squad management thing. Coronado could be expecting minutes in maybe both games. the rest of the week. So maybe that was the, calculus for Wilmer. But that did strike me because I would imagine Tumasi is probably going to start in the Open Cup. And because he did against Harpos as well. So there is maybe something to the fact that Tumasi has actually played himself ahead of Coronado on the depth chart. And on the evidence that we've seen, I think that's fair. Like, I think we've seen more out of Tumasi than we've seen from Coronado so far this season. And obviously a long way to go. And everybody's going to be needed this whole season. But I do think it's interesting because Coronado was a very stabilizing presence in the squad when he joined last year, because we lacked all like that sort of stability in midfield. And now with Daroma, with Tumasi, like we have some options who are getting in there ahead of Coronado. So a good shout. Also, there's something very aesthetically pleasing to me as maybe a purist of an 8-6 pivot in midfield. Daroma wearing the number 8, Calvillo wearing the number 6. There's something very satisfying about that.
Absolutely. And then you look at the back line and see a 7, and it just ruins everything. I guess we should mention that Jamali Waite was back from international duty, so
yes,
back in the sticks. I'm interested to see, I guess, what that means for the rest of the week, because Sebastian Mora really didn't do much wrong in his two appearances so far, but of course Jamali's number 1, so I wonder if minutes get managed or if we just go with our starter for every game. But
I imagine he might have a bit of a, like with the cup, he might take like a bit of a, maybe an English mentality, if you will, where you have a goalkeeper who plays in the cups,
which historically we have done. So yeah.
So I think Mora could probably expect to play against Ventura County midweek, and then probably expect some minutes in the Jägermeister as well. I mean, we know he'll get significant minutes just from international call-ups, but it does feel like we've got more opportunity for him to get minutes.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about like the quality just wasn't really there for portions of this one, and Hartford in particular. And I hesitate to say it because like just saying a team is bad is kind of like under punching the level of quality that does exist in this league, because these are very good players on Hartford, but as a team, like they probably looked the worst of of any team that we played so far. And unfortunately, like in the opening stages of this one, and then maybe, for large stages after, Locomotive had a lot of the ball, which is, is essentially the exact opposite of what we did against New Mexico. But had a lot of the ball and ultimately weren't really able to do a lot of progressive play that advanced the ball specifically into like dangerous shooting opportunities. Like we just weren't able to create against, and I don't know if it was the way that Hartford set up to try to like sit deep, and maybe we just struggled against the like a lower block where we've been kind of doing that at times. But there was a lot of possession, and unfortunately, like for much of the game, it was like possession for possession's sake.
Yeah, I think the first half pretty much established what the rhythm of the game was going to be, and it was going to be Hartford, stepping back a little bit, us dominating the ball. I think the first half we had about almost 60%, 58% possession. Hartford did come back in the second half and try to be more aggressive because they had to, really. They had no choice. And unfortunately for them, it doesn't pay off. But yeah, I think there was a lot of possession for possession's sake. What I will credit the team with is, despite the lack of actual like patterns of play, creating shots from open or creating chances from open play, we were able to force a lot of set pieces and corners. And we end up, scoring both our goals from set pieces. The first one being kind of like a second phase of play type thing, and a lot of luck involved, but you got to be in those areas to get those bounces. And so I think that's worth something. And then of course the second goal with the flick on from Palermo Ortiz to the path of Wahab Akwe to get the go ahead goal to ultimately win it. But yeah, I there was something that the commentator said about Hartford that really it's kind of stuck with me because I was thinking like, okay, maybe that is it. He said, if I'm Brendan Burke, I'm thinking of changing the formation. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's what's wrong here. Like there's not enough width. Like this is a team that I think should play how we play, like with a 3-4-3,
Yeah.
5-3, 5 whatever, 5-4-1. Just because I mean you have Dieng up top, an absolute man mountain. You need to be spamming balls into the box for him, and I don't think Ingalina and Jimenez really did that. I don't know. I just think there should be more like support for him around the width of the box, and then crosses coming in from wide, from wing backs. So yeah, this 4-2-3-1, like I don't know what they were going for with it necessarily, and I think at the end of the day, Dieng does get a goal. But he had the least touches of any outfield player to play 90 minutes, just 24. So that's just not good enough for, the man leading the line, and for Brendan Burke, who's trying to lead like a regeneration in Hartford. I think that kind of stuck with me of like they probably need to like play to what strengths they do have, which they have an absolute like massive dude up
He's
front.
huge,
yeah. So and he was a problem, but he was a problem because of himself, not because of the system supporting him necessarily. So, and then on the other side of the pitch, I think Siaha. Was he at Monterey? And we were like, this is one of the low key, like one of the best goalkeepers in the Western Conference at the time.
Yeah.
So
he gave us fits. Yeah.
So on the other side of the pitch, I think too, like when you lose the ball, like they need to collapse around him and give him a chance. So there's bits and bobs of this Hartford team, is what I'm saying. Like they have pieces here that could be more than some of their parts, but for some reason, like they just didn't offer anything really. So
let's talk about Beto Avila's goal, because you said it is a second phase of a set piece. It's an initial ball in that's headed away by Hartford. The strike comes in. I think was it Calvillo who takes on like a left-footed strike from distance.
No, it was
or Ricky Ruiz.
So it was a set piece. It was a free kick that got bent in, and then I think it like rebounded. Then someone took a shot and it deflected off. Yeah.
Someone headed out the initial. It was headed out initially, and then the shot comes in. It deflects into Beto, like right to Beto's feet, and he's able to sort out his feet in time, like to curl it into that far corner. There was a bit of this goal where I'm thinking like, this is all taking so long. Like it felt like it was happening in slow motion.
He took a touch, but the weird thing is like 100% it felt like he was going in slow motion, but he took a touch and the defender still couldn't recover. Like, and Siaha is just like, what is happening? Like he throws his arms up like, what are you guys doing? Like he probably bottles that actually, like taking that touch. But at the end of the day, it's a nice finish. But yeah, like that's just horrendous defending.
I think watching it back to like, they commit your like favorite cardinal sin to point out, which is every Hartford defender is appealing for offside rather than actually trying to go play the ball, where they probably could have closed him down if they weren't so busy looking at the referee to like stop play.
Hate that. Absolutely hate that, because you take your mind out of the game and out of the moment in looking for that decision. And in USL, like, be so for real. Like that is a crazy thing to rely on, offside calls in this league. So that you're right. That is one of my big like football bugaboos, but
you can't 100%. It's one of those where it's like, you can't 100% tell, because, any angle that you get especially during live game, like is not going to provide a down the line view. But
Right.
I can pretty confidently say that it is at best close.
Sure.
And at worst, it's like not that close to being offside, but he's definitely not like clearly off.
Yeah.
That's the only time you can like feel aggrieved
Sure.
if a guy is like miles offside.
Right.
But we've seen those also not given. So like yeah, you just can't rely on it. And he takes a touch. In the end, it doesn't hurt him and puts Locomotive into the lead. And it's one of those where it's like for the rest of the half, we felt very comfortable up until the 5-minute spell right before halftime. And for whatever reason, like the 1 inch that Locomotive gave Hartford back into the game, and I think Locomotive maybe have an issue with this, which is like the second a team feels like they are in it, we often concede in those moments. Like it's very rare for us to kind of suffer in a game and escape unscathed.
Yeah.
Like
No,
we
I get
always feel like we get punished in those moments where we just let the standard slip a little bit, we lose a little bit of control, and it feels like we get punished 100% of the time. And in this case, it was Dieng who equalized right before halftime.
Yeah, well, I think what bothered me the most about this, aside from, like you said, the tide turning and it feeling so just like scripted against us, is
FIFA rubber banding or whatever.
Right. I think what bothered me most after that was that like we seemed to be kind of like overloading the ball side, and at one point there's like 4 players on, I think it's Jimenez who gets the assist ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody stops him. He still is able to make the play. And it's just like, it's like Aqua's there. Calvillo's kind of there, but not like really committing. Ruiz, Moreno as well. Moreno and Calvillo kind of like there, but not like intervening necessarily. But it was just entirely too many Locomotive shirts around one guy for him to then still be able to play the ball. And then Dieng, he just needs to put himself in the box and something will come to him. Yep. And sure enough, it did. And he's able to score and hits the Sioux.
Brian Romero was fuming.
Yeah. So not a good goal to give up.
I did misspeak on the goal because I said it was right before halftime. It was not. It was like on the 30-minute mark. So
might as well have been because nothing else happened after that.
Yeah.
That I recall. So
no, there's not even a highlight.
It was spiritually in the 45th minute. Like
it did feel like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, in this case, like I think again, there is maybe a thing too to like Locomotive have done a really good job this season compared to previous, where like I think the organization, or compared to last season, the organization is quite clear. Like defensively, they do remain quite sound. Like we maybe are a little more conservative in the way we approach games because of that, but it does mean that we're rarely caught out of shape and all that sort of stuff. When we're caught out of shape, like it is bad. And in this case, like Aquay gets caught out, like gets kind of like sucked out wide, and Daroma and it's like Daroma and Ricky Ruiz are all like they get beat by one pass, and then it's just we're now all facing the goal, and it's just like it just doesn't look good. It looks like completely out of sorts. And so I think that's something else too, of like being able to recover in those moments where you're not exactly set up defensively how you want to be, and finding the way to intervene in, in a way that avoids a goal. Because again, it just feels like when we get caught out of shape, it feels like we get punished often in those moments as well.
Yeah. And to further to your point about kind of like being overall pretty solid, just peeking at some of the stats around the league. And obviously the sample size is very small because we've only had 4 league match days, but we lead the league like by some margin in interceptions per match, which I find fascinating because to me that tells me like we're very active defending, but maybe but maybe some of it might be a little bit last ditch at times.
Yeah.
And in this case, I think that's what happened here is like we were kind of scrambling and no one, like I said, of the 4 people that were on the near side trying to cut off the pass, no one really like fully committed to doing that.
Yeah.
And then Dieng's able to capitalize. So yeah, I do think we have to figure out a way to like suffer better, right?
Yeah.
Because it's football. The momentum almost is always going to swing, but you have to
Sure.
figure out a way to deal with that and not let a team back in. And maybe that'll come as this team continues to gel, but I do think it's worth pointing out because we're better than Hartford, and to let them back in was silly.
Yeah. There is an interesting, the one stat that I did throw out there is this is Hartford's first goal of the season, which always feels rough to concede, to a team that has created so little. And the really rough part is that was their second shot on target of the year, in their third, in the 29th minute of their third game. That was their second shot on target.
That's diabolical.
They had 1 in one game and 0 in the other game.
That is truly heinous. I think this was their home opener as well. So like back-to-back road home openers for our opponents, just like that kind of sucks.
Yeah, that does suck. And to Locomotive's credit, they only allow 2 shots overall, like over the 90 minutes. It just sucks.
Yeah, because they couldn't get Dieng the ball.
Yeah,
like they couldn't do it. So
and it is hard to see exactly what Hartford was trying to do, aside from maybe frustrate. But further to your point, well, I guess there was a complete lack of action in the second half. Like basically nothing of note occurs for legit like 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Hartford, they did try to come out and put their foot on the ball a little bit more, but again, like they weren't finding anybody in anything close to like dangerous.
Yeah, and they didn't generate, or I guess they generated 1 shot in the second half. They get 1 per half.
I mean, they need to,
and it was from a million miles out, like easy.
Well, see, that's funny that you say that because, like, I was just about to say they probably need to watch like our Phoenix game and just like hit them. And see
right? Yeah, just hit it into the night and see if it lands in the top corner.
Yeah, but no, that's interesting. Yeah, for all their work, it really didn't amount to much.
Yeah. I am gonna look up something very stupid here in a second, but there's a very nonsense narrative that we could start about Jamali Waite a few games into the season because across 3 matches played, and this is why sample size is important, and statistics can often be twisted to mean whatever you want them to mean. Jamali Waite, the finished goalkeeper, 7 goals against on 9 shots on target against.
See, and that's not good, right? It's not good, but I can't think of any like howlers in there.
That's the thing is like, I think there's the deeper narrative here, and like I know I'm bringing this up sort of as a joke because we know Jamali Waite is like an incredible goalkeeper.
Right.
I think the narrative here is probably something along the lines of the shots on target. We are not allowing that many shots on target overall. We've allowed 9 across 3 games. That's pretty good. And the shots on target we're allowing are way too high quality. Like, obviously midfield shots notwithstanding, but even if it's 3 saves from 8 or 2 saves from 8 shots on target against, like, we haven't given Jamali Waite like a chance with any of these essentially. Or it would have been a worldie, like if he had pulled it off. I'm thinking like Hurst, that's a rocket. Like as he's moving across the box, like he's not saving that. The couple of Phoenix ones, he's getting like, oh yeah, that was Mora.
Yeah.
But even then,
yeah, no one's getting to that.
The Phoenix one's like one-on-one, pretty much like he's not getting to a lot of those. Like, so I think there is maybe an issue of just like the shots on target. We're not allowing that many shots on target. That's good. The ones we're allowing are really high quality and probably problematic. Cause yeah, this one in this game, he's never getting to. It's a tap in. Like, it's just, yeah, is what it is. So luckily, Set Piece FC, and maybe Mikka, you're just destined to watch teams that are really good from set pieces. But Locomotive have scored a lot of set piece goals like Arsenal, and win this one the Aki way. Wahab Akwe with the winner in the 85th minute. It felt it's fitting in the to say in Connecticut as much, in the tri-state area.
Can't forget the beverage. Yeah, no, it's I'm glad that he's rewarded, and he actually gets into the team of the week, if I'm not mistaken, with the USL Championship. So congrats to Wahab. He, we kind of went in on him a little bit for like a clearance or two that he made against Phoenix that just was not up to the standards.
Yeah.
And then he did make way for one game. Then he comes back in and he did really well and he contributes. But you gotta give the shout out to Palermo Ortiz for this goal, because that glancing like flick on, that's such a hard skill to execute. And he absolutely means that, because he's way past the near post. So he obviously means that positioning is really good. The flick on's great. Palermo, much needed experience at the back there this season, and he's been really solid. And yeah, I just want to give credit, because that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And it kind of bamboozles the Hartford defense, and Wahab's there to tap in. So obviously a relief, left it late, but got the 3 points, and at the end of the day you kind of just have to say, great, move on, know. And we've never lost in Hartford in the league. Granted, it's only been 2 games, but you take it, because that's
Absolutely.
quite a hike. That might be, have we played Rhode Island away yet?
No.
Okay, so I would say Hartford's probably the farthest we ever travel, right? I mean,
yeah.
So,
Rhode Island came to El Paso last year, so
right. So.
A long trip, and like you said, I mean, we said that maybe, especially given Hartford's slow start to the season, it's very much, hey, we should have expected 3 points here, and at the same time, any time that you win on the road is a bit of a gift, or in terms of like, you're not chalking up road games as automatic, hey, we should lock up 3 points here, and these are going to be important points, at the business end of the season, ideally,
right,
in the playoff hunt, or at least a hunt for a good seed. So anyways, overall a good result. It was a long road to get there, but
I don't know who needs to hear this, but our record right now is identical to the defending champion Colorado Springs Switchbacks. 1 win, 2 draws, 1 loss, 8 scored, 8 conceded.
That's crazy.
So, they just happen to be above us. Because is the tiebreaker head to head? I actually don't know.
USL tiebreakers are confusing.
Okay.
Because I don't think it is goal. I think it is head to head before goal difference, which is always weird to me.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't like that.
I think that's Serie A type beat, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, we get the job done, and great. Who were the let's see. I'm trying to think of like the subs we made.
Yeah.
Because do we need to talk about Frank DeRoma and this like penchant for discipline? Because he just came back from a red card, a suspension, and then he I forget what he even did, but I just remember thinking it was pretty like childish.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a strop. maybe you might call it.
Sure.
Throws his toys out the pram. No,
As
he's actually the only Locomotive player booked in this game, which I think was indicative of the fact that like there was an element of control, or there was like a level of control that Locomotive had in this game that maybe we hadn't shown recently. And it was the first game that I can remember in a while where we didn't escape, or like where we escaped the game with a lot less bookings than our opposition. The Daroma discipline thing, I mean, his sending off against Phoenix felt like he was almost trying to prove a point by getting sent off, which again is like a big discipline thing, because it's like you can't let the referee, like as a player, you can't allow yourself to become so entranced or entrenched, I guess, like in the game against, or in a game against the referee, that you get sent off, right? Like you're not actually proving anything to anyone, because you're going to be suspended and the ref will continue to work. Like there's no, you didn't win anything.
He'll be unbothered.
Yeah. So I think there is maybe a little bit of it does seem like he can get riled. And maybe that's the way to classify it, is he does play with a level of emotion, but maybe needs to work on the control slightly.
Yeah, and he's finally kind of spared in garbage time at the 90th minute. I think coffee probably came on for him.
Yeah.
So, and what I will say too is that it looks good now because we won, but the very late subs was fascinating given the week that we have coming up.
Yeah. Gabby Torres being the only sub and for an attacker.
Right.
Like he comes on for Beto Avila. Like he didn't, you would have expected it to be Ricky Ruiz who makes way, and he actually switches out an attacker. Now, to his credit, maybe he's playing 4D chess, and Gabby Torres earns the corner that ends up like winning us the game. And 80 minutes to make a sub in a 1-1 game on the road just feels like hyper conservative, like beyond what you should reasonably expect.
Yeah. I just thought that was fascinating. Because Wilmer's not as clockwork about the subs like Brian was. So
60 minutes.
It's something to get used to, I suppose.
But
yeah, overall good result. Just forgettable for sure as a spectacle.
Yeah, not one that we're gonna look back on come the end of the season, I don't think.
Right.
So, well, I guess we can probably take a quick break and come back and chat about our 2 upcoming games.
Sounds good.
And we're back. Mikka, this week, I guess tomorrow, technically, probably today, if you're listening to this, Locomotive facing off against Ventura County FC in the U.S. Open Cup. Ventura County, for those keeping track, the reserve team for LA Galaxy in MLS, which rebranded from LA Galaxy 2 into Ventura County. They are in this round by virtue of beating Laguna United 7-0 in the first round. Laguna United, not a amateur program as well, so sort of a similar story to what Locomotive did to Harpo's FC in the first round. Little bit of a strange one in that MLS Next Pro teams participating in this at all, like, just feels gross, like the reserve sides anyways, because it is by virtue of the fact that LA Galaxy are not in the Open Cup this year,
right?
Which just sucks overall. But yeah, they won 1-0 over Houston 2 in MLS Next Pro last time out. But this is the sort of team that, I mean, aside from, yes, they are LA Galaxy's, reserve team, and there's some talents in there. The thing that I'm maybe most focused on in a match like this is going out of the Open Cup to an MLS reserve team feels unacceptable.
Yeah, it feels against the natural order of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you mentioned in the last episode, they have given us that work before. So we cannot sleep on this. But obviously it's a different prospect this time around. I think they're even more of a reserve team than they were as Los Dos. I know nothing about this team except that they have a player, Jindawi, I think, who is an influencer. He and his wife have 4 million TikTok followers.
That's crazy.
And 2 million YouTube and Instagram followers or something. So I don't know if he's just doing this football thing on the side or what, but good for him, I guess.
Yeah. Do your thing. Get your bag.
Yeah. So there's and plus that is what I know, and then the other thing I know is that there seems to be this German influence generally on this team with Luis Muller and El Jindawi. The coach, what's his name? Matt Taylor played several years in Germany. Actually scored quite a lot of goals in the lower leagues over there.
Yeah.
With Rot-Weiss-Ahlen, Paderborn, Preußen Münster, Saarbrücken,
yeah,
good clubs. And now he's coaching this side. So some interesting little tidbits here and there, but yeah, I'm hoping that we can beat them and see how far we can take this cup run. Can we call it a cup run if we have another game? Is that a thing?
I think if we make it to the third round, we can officially call it a cup run.
Okay.
Although
so we're at a cup walk right now.
We're at a cup walk. It'll be depressing when our cup run is just to get back to facing USL Championship sides.
Oh yeah, about that.
Because that's who joins in the third round, unfortunately. So probably have to play fucking San Antonio. So everybody get prepared for that. Which would follow the trend of we only play San Antonio on Wednesdays. We never play them on weekends.
Right, because we've been wanting to make that road trip for a while and it just never works.
Yep. So, yeah, you mentioned Luis Muller for Ventura County, and craziest name for a non-Argentinian German person.
Right.
And yeah, he is kind of their threat. Recently, he scored the lone goal in the 1-0 over Houston Dynamo 2 in their last MLS Next Pro game, and he had 3 assists and a goal against Laguna United in that 7-0 drubbing. So a hat trick of assists, really pulling the strings. And yeah, a guy who came over from prior to joining, I think, LAFC. I think he's actually played for the reserve teams on both sides of the LA rivalry.
And I think he actually is credited with winning the Open Cup because of his time at LAFC.
Interesting.
Last season. So
interesting. Winner's medal.
Yes. So
yeah, made the trip across town to the rivals.
Right.
But yeah, product of Energie Cottbus, while we're naming lower league German clubs, and FC Köln for a long time. He was in their ranks for quite a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty serious footballing education, which we've talked about historically can be a big difference maker. But that's Wednesday in Carson, California. So it is I believe a set
8:30 kickoff.
8:30 kickoff.
Yeah. So that's an ungodly hour for you.
Yeah, that's a 10:30. But it works out since I'm traveling for work, because I have a hotel room to myself, so I will just go back there and lay down.
Lovely.
So yeah, I will take in the match probably from
Where are you
bed
headed,
and
by
then
the way?
immediately fall asleep. Columbus, Ohio. I'm really going exotic.
Getting stamps on that passport. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Cool.
like just far enough away to where I have to leave stupid early in the morning to get there, but
Right.
for the meeting. But it was a choice between spending tonight there and just leaving early. And it was like, I'm not willing to spend another night in Columbus for no fucking reason. So
fair.
So anyways, all that being said, looking forward to that one, and hopefully, like you said, we can turn this cup walk into a cup run. But Saturday, they're back in the league, and we obviously won't have much time to recover from the Open Cup before we're back. And Lexington SC are coming to town with a couple of familiar faces. One in particular, Logan Ketterer, is the netminder for Lexington SC. Lucas Stauffer also around among their charges. So, but Logan returning to the SWUP for the first time since he departed Locomotive after the 2021 season, I believe, for Montreal in MLS. And this is one where it feels like very uncontroversial in terms of Logan coming back. You know, obviously not wearing Locomotive colors feels a little bit strange, but at the same time, I think you'd have to work pretty hard to find any Locomotive fans who are going to give him anything but the warmest welcome at the SWUP after his time away.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see what the atmosphere is like. I mean, I would assume, same as you, that the welcome will be a warm one, and you know, he's spent so many years kind of third, fourth choice down the depth chart in MLS, and now he's back with a starting role in a newly promoted side, a side that's very ambitious. It's catching me out a little bit that they're in the Western Conference. Like, they are more east than Louisville, so geographically speaking. So that was a little bit of a jump scare, but they're in a very similar position to us 4 games in, or identical really, one win, 2 draws, and a loss. But they did just get clapped in the US Open Cup against literal teenagers.
Crew 2.
Which
Columbus.
Logan was
Speaking
not
of Columbus.
Yeah. So, and Logan was not backstopping them tonight, but still, I would think they'd have enough to get past Crew 2. So that's...
They got
walloped.
stomped. Yeah.
So that's not good.
No.
But we'll take it.
Yes. Yeah. So a little bit of a blow to the and maybe back-to-back sort of blows to the confidence, because in their last league match, they had a 2-0 lead after 16 minutes against San Antonio, who's been obviously had a quite strong start to the season.
Yeah.
And it just collapsed. The following 10 minutes, it was already 2-2, and then Jake LaCava found a winner on 82 minutes for San Antonio. And I mean, what a season that they are off to. They're undefeated, and well, they have won all 4 of their games to open the season, which is must be nice. They are looking like quite the force under their new manager Carlos Llamosa, but Lexington is one where it's like they've got some threats. They obviously have a good goalkeeper. They have a team sort of stacked with known quantities from the USL, sort of similar maybe roster construction to what Locomotive tried last year. And it is like taking a little bit of time to gel, maybe a bit. But all that being said, you've got the likes of Marcus Epps, Nicholas Firmino, Corey Burke, who are all threats in attack. Sofian Jafal, for me, is one of the like under the radar, like one of the best midfielders in USL. And just like, he does seem to be maybe a little bit of a fiery character in the locker room because he's bounced around a bit. Like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah, despite being really good. And like, it was his circumstances for leaving Orange County last year were maybe a little bit mysterious. But he's landed in Lexington. He started the season extremely well. And I mean, between the two of us, like, who does not love a French Algerian midfielder born in Nantes? Like that. I mean, this is heritage.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, why does everyone get like a really good French midfielder but us? Like first JC and Gondo, like at Lights.
I know.
And now Jafal. It's not fair. But anyway.
I know. Ever since Alexi, we've it cursed Frenchmen for Locomotive. Like we had a Francophile era.
We did. Oh, who was our
because we had Chiro and Toko, who was Belgian.
We had,
which I think counts. The Belgians wouldn't love to hear that, or some of the Belgians wouldn't love to hear that, but
yeah, the in Flanders they're like,
yeah,
Flanders.
The fuck you say?
Who was the midfielder that we had that was like BFFs with the Pogbas?
Oh, was he from
I'm having such a brain fart. I could see him in my mind's eye, but like I was gonna say Fabrice Facoba, but that is so not right. That guy was for like 2 seconds. He was from Portugal.
Yeah. No, come on. I see his stuff on Instagram every once in a while. The guy you're talking about. Distel Zola.
Yeah. He came from Tour?
Yeah.
But yeah. Bring back the Francophiles, bro.
Yep. That's when we lost our way, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what Mark Lowry is, just a Francophile, turns out. Like that's the
our British core, our like
he was
Celtic, British Celtic core with like the French filling it out.
It was the British Isles plus France. Like he was just building a 100 Years War all-time squad. But yeah, I think like to just like wrap up on this Lexington squad, there's a ton of good here, and there's just a bit of inconsistency, probably a bit of gelling. I did have to double check that Kieran Sargent spells his last name a little bit differently than Josh.
Okay.
So it is not, it is, because I was like, this has to be, I mean, I profiled a little bit because Kieran has red hair, and I was like, surely this is his brother. They don't even have the same exact last name. There's an A where there is no A in Josh Sargent's last name. So
can I just say, like, Lexington, so they're called Lexington Sporting Club, and I have to say, like, fair play to them, because they really are a club. They have men's professional, women's professional, men's amateur, women's pre-professional, and an academy.
Yeah.
Like, that is an insane level of infrastructure. And that, I think you can, like, really call yourself a club, right?
Absolutely.
So, and they're ambitious, and yeah, I think the owners are very much, like, invested just beyond, like, their actual literal money. I think they really want to make waves. And yeah, it's I don't know. I have a lot of respect for this club. I think that like they've done things the right way, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how they get on. And the badge is just like, I don't know, like they're making me realize that like not everyone, like no one uses like neon. Like I love the boldness of that choice.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And going green, like there are technically like 3 shades of green, I think, in this. In this crest, and no other color, which is like also bold. Like, and I think there's something to be said where you're just like, this is our identity visually. So yeah, a challenge, I think, for Locomotive, in that it is a team that's in a similar spot to us, both from a points. They are in the exact same spot, I think, from a points gathered perspective. And it is sort of a measuring stick of like, where is this Locomotive side going to settle in the West? Because I would imagine Lexington is going to be a team that's down in the, not, that isn't like fighting at the very top of the West, but is maybe in that sort of like 5th through 8th spot, like fighting for playoff positioning.
Did we even mention that they've got Cameron Lancaster on the books?
We did not. He's
Yeah.
become less of a he is like I guess like tailing down a little bit in terms of his contributions, but yeah, I mean a huge like
But still,
the
last
most
season,
prolific goal scorer in USL history, I think.
yeah, I mean, at 32 years old, a goal every other game last season.
Yeah,
That's pretty decent. I think we would go for that at Locomotive.
we would.
So to have that as kind of like reserve, almost not reserve, but like depth is insane. And Valesky and man, they've got some players. Marcus Epps has been fantastic this season. So wow,
yeah, they've got
Stauffer playing like a midfield role. So that's fascinating. But yeah, if there's any team that'll have like the inside track on us, like in a particular way coming into this game, it's Lexington, and you know they've got Logan and Lucas to tell them what's up. So
prepare them for the atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting. It's an interesting mashup. And then in terms of Locomotive's approach, I mean, it does feel like, you know, obviously the midweek game is going to have a lot of influence over what the starting lineup looks like on Saturday and maybe how Wilmer prepares for one versus the other. It feels like the way that he approached it with Harpo's was he almost had like pre-planned changes midweek where he made a couple of changes at halftime, but it wasn't who you were expecting. It wasn't just like rest all of the starters. It was like, no, I'm going to get a certain amount of minutes in like everybody's legs kind of.
Right.
So I wonder if it'll be a similar approach. And then in the aftermath of that, there was really no adjustment to the starting lineup that weren't, or no adjustments to the starting lineup in the league that weren't enforced by suspension in the game, in the New Mexico game, like after Harpo. So I think similarly, I think he'll try to not veer from selection wise, like what he's been kind of doing. But is it fair to say that the question marks are like most of the names are written on the team sheet aside from sort of this, whatever's going on with Toomey and then probably fullback.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly seems from the initial game against Harpo's and then the comments that the manager made afterwards that he does want to take this seriously. And, having won it before, obviously, I think he'll be, uniquely motivated in that sense. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe the players that came on really late against Hartford will be the ones that kind of get the look in, but obviously we'll just have to see. But yeah, 8:30 kickoff though, guys, so don't sleep on it. And is this gonna be on like YouTube or like how does this one work?
If I'm remembering correctly, this round now, or if I saw right, I think it might now be on CBS. I think they might have picked up the rest of it. So like Paramount or CBS Sports, I think.
Got it.
But I can
just to let the people know.
Yeah, let me double check that because we're on ESPN Plus. Okay, so never mind. So CBS has it from the third round on, but it will be on YouTube again. So similar to the first game, this one will be on YouTube. The US Soccer YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, so CBS picked up CBS Sports signed a deal to pick up the third round on, and then is going to be the broadcaster for this year and next year's Open Cup. So I think CBS has been a good steward of its soccer properties, so I think we can be happy with that.
Agreed.
So cool. Well, Mikka, anything we missed before we?
I don't think so.
Good people get on with their days.
Yeah, it's another big week for Locomotive. We'll see how it all shakes out. It's been a bit of an inconsistent start, so I'm hoping with this Hartford result that we can find some form. But yeah, starts again tomorrow.
It sure does. Well, hope everybody enjoyed. Like I said at the top of the episode, find our podcast where you love to listen to podcasts, and feel free to drop us a like, subscribe, all that stuff. And we will be speaking, I'm sure, after the game against Lexington at the weekend. So until then, hope everyone has a great week and stay loco.